Obligations of citizens. This portion is going to be dealing with what you, the citizen, should be doing to make your community better. One is you should always obey all the laws that we have. Number two, whether you like it or not, we should pay taxes. The taxes that we have build the schools that we are in, build the roads that we have, and pay for the law enforcement to protect us. Also, one of the other items is serving on a jury. We're going to be going into detail about how a jury deals with criminal trials and civil trials, but overall we need citizens just like you to serve on these juries, to be unbiased, to serve to make sure that the person gets a very fair trial. So I hope you enjoy this. Make sure that you underline each and every bold word, make sure that you understand what they mean, and make sure that if I ask you a question at the end of this section, you can actually define them.
You should now be in the middle of the packet where it says the obligations of citizenship. Make sure to have a pen, pencil, and highlighter ready so you can mark the text as we go through the reading. The obligations of citizenship. As you learned in the preface to this book, all American citizens have obligations and responsibilities as well as rights. Not only citizens, but visitors to the United States and lawful permanent residents must obey the law. They must also pay local sales taxes when they buy things. Lawful permanent residents have the right to work. If they do so, they must pay income taxes just as American citizens do. So, whether you're a citizen or you're just here visiting, you have certain obligations, things you have to do. If you look at the chart on the right-hand side, you can see the obligations of citizenship, which these are the must, the things that you have to do when you're a citizen. 1 is obey the law. 2, pay taxes. 3, register with the Selective Service. And 4, serve on juries if summoned. I want you to circle that box and put a big star next to it, or in the corner of it, so you're not blocking any of the words, to show that that's important. If you want to go over it with a highlighter instead of circle it, that is also fine. Then, turn the page. Selective Service. All draft-age males living in the United States must register with the Selective Service System once they reach the age of 18 years old. Underline or highlight that sentence. This applies to lawful permanent residents and citizens. Even undocumented, illegal aliens living in the United States are expected to register with the Selective Service System. According to the Selective Service website, attention undocumented males and immigrant servicing groups. The Selective Service has not now, or in the past, collected or shared any information which would indicate a man's immigration status, either documented or undocumented. The Selective Service System has no authority to collect such information and has no use for it, and is irrelevant to the registration requirement. Consequently, there is no immigration data to share with anyone. You want to protect yourself for future U.S. citizenship and other government benefits and programs by registering with the Selective Service. Do it today. If you are a man ages 18 to 25 and living in the U.S., then you must register with Selective Service. It's the law. According to the law, a man must register with Selective Service within 30 days of his 18th birthday. Underline or highlight that. Selective Service will accept late registrations, but not after a man has reached age 26. You may be denied benefits or a job if you have not registered. You can register at any U.S. post office and do not need a social security number. So what that's saying is anyone can register, and you do so at the local post office. Every male between 18 and 26, whether you're a citizen or not, is supposed to register with Selective Service. Back to the reading. The purpose of the Selective Service System is to help defend the United States. I want you to highlight that and put a little star next to it. The Selective Service keeps the names and addresses of registrants on file in case the United States ever needs to reestablish conscription, compulsory military service. So that means like the draft. During the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the war in Vietnam, young men were required to serve in the military. In 1918, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the practice of military conscription as a responsibility of citizenship. It may not be doubted that the very conception of just government and its duties to the citizens includes the reciprocal obligation of the citizen to render military service in case of need and the right to compel it. That's just a fancy way of saying that the citizens have a responsibility to the government to help defend it, just as the government has a responsibility to the citizens to serve their needs. So it's a two-way streak. Not all draft-age men have been needed in every year of every war. Typically, the Selective Service drew the days of the year at random and assigned each day a number. Those numbers determine the order in which eligible men were called upon each year for military service. In the drawing that took place in 1969, September 14th was assigned number 1. April 24th was assigned number 2. December 30th was given the number 3. February 14th had the number 4, and so on. The first group of men to be called up or drafted by the Selective Service Boards around the country were draft-age men born on September 14th. The next group to be called up had their birthdays on April 24th. The third group were born on December 30th, and the fourth group on February 14th. These men were all sent a notice to appear before the local Selective Service Board for physical examination and induction into the U.S. Army. So, what that's saying is they just randomly picked dates, and it was the first group people drafted were born on September 14th. That means anyone born on September 14th that was within the draft age was called up and to join the Army. And they did this so it was random, so it wasn't any certain group of people, any certain area that people came from. It was just based on when you were randomly born. Turn the page.
But the false security of the world was not to last. Greedy men, ruling their lands with the spiked boot and words of hate, spawned the seeds of world disaster. Theirs was a policy of one world, their world, 100% share of it. They marched and the world grew smaller and more dangerous. We were awakened from our dream. Just around the corner had meant running into a nightmare. Some still said, but we have 2 oceans protecting us. That trouble is all far away. Maybe so, but better play it safe anyway.
The first number is serial number 158.
This is the Army, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephone. You had your breakfast in bed before, but you won't have it there anymore.
The second number, which has just been drawn, is 192.
This is the Army, Mr. Green. We like the barracks nice and clean. You had a housemaid to clean your floor, but she won't help you out anymore. Do as the buglers command. They're in the Army and not in a band. This is the Army, Mr. Brown. You and your baby went to town. She had you worried, but this is war, and she won't worry you anymore. So she won't worry you anymore.
During the war in Vietnam, the U.S. Navy and Air Force continued to rely on volunteers. Conscientious objectors, those who refused to fight on religious grounds, were excused from compulsory military service. The draft ended in 1973. Since that time, the United States has had an all-volunteer military force. Citizens volunteer to serve in the armed forces out of patriotism and to obtain the many benefits of military service: good pay, physical and vocational training, work experience, funding for the future, education, health benefits, and opportunities for travel. Of course, there is also hard work associated with the tour of military duty and the risk of injury or even loss of life in combat. So there's a lot of benefits to joining the military. It can be a great career, but there are some risks involved. Although the draft has ended, all draft-age males living in America must still register with the Selective Service System when they reach the age of 18 years old in case the United States ever needs to draft young men again. So the draft is not in effect, but we keep having people register just in case that time comes when we do need to have the draft in effect to build our army. Jury service. Only citizens are asked to serve on juries. For jury service, a court will usually choose names by lot, at random, from a list of licensed drivers and those with Florida identification cards who live in the area. Courts have the power to summon individuals to appear before them, which means to summon means to call upon. So the courts have the power to summon, to call upon people to appear before them. Potential jurors are sent a jury summons by ordinary mail. The summons tells the potential juror where and when, both the day and the time, to appear. The citizen receiving the summons can ask for a postponement or to be excused from jury duty, but most provide a valid reason to the courts. In many districts, those who receive a jury summons can actually telephone to the court on the afternoon before the date to appear in order to see if they are still needed. Some of these citizens will be asked to go the next morning to the courthouse where they will form a part of a juror pool. These citizens must remain at the courthouse for one day, waiting to be called. So a jury pool is a group of citizens waiting to be called to see if they're needed for a jury. So underline or highlight juror pool down to waiting to be called. Only some of them will actually end up serving on the jury. The actual jurors for each case are chosen at random from members of a juror pool at the courthouse. Lawyers have the right to question these citizens before they are placed on a specific jury. The lawyers may strike or eliminate a number of potential jurors. Turn the page. Without giving any reason, they can also eliminate jurors on the grounds of possible prejudice. By serving on juries, citizens help protect our constitutional right to be tried by our peers, which are our equals. Underline or highlight peers. In this case, it is easy to see how our rights and responsibilities are related. We enjoy the benefit of trial by jury, but our help is needed to serve as jurors for others. I want you to underline that whole little section. I want you to put a big star next to it, and underneath it, I want you to put reason for jury and an arrow pointing at that little paragraph.
This section is on the responsibilities you have as a U.S. citizen. These are the things you should be doing to be a good citizen in the United States. One of the main things is you need to vote. To vote is to give your opinion, to give your ideas to the government so they can then represent you better. Also, to run for office. You can run for local office like mayor. You can go for county commissioners, governor of a state, all the way up to president of the United States of America. That's a responsibility people have in this country in order to make the country work the way it's supposed to. Also, as a good citizen, you'll want to attend public meetings. It's your responsibility to go to the meetings in Dade City to find out what Dade City is doing, so that way you can then voice your opinion if you like it or dislike it, so that the government can better represent the people living in the community. So as you go through this section, it's going to go over many different responsibilities a U.S. citizen has. Make sure you underline or highlight each responsibility. In the paragraph next to it, I want you to summarize in one sentence what that responsibility means. So for voting, I want you to put to share your ideas with the government. And then go through each one of those different responsibilities and make sure you write a sentence next to that paragraph.
We are now going to go over the responsibilities you have as a citizen. The responsibilities of citizenship. The shoulds of a citizenship. So, the obligations are the musts, the things you must do. Responsibilities are things you should do. I want you to write that somewhere on this page. Responsibilities of citizens, right next to it put things you should do. If you look at the box on the left, it gives you a list of the things that you should do as a good citizen. Be informed about the local and state and national public affairs, voting in elections, joining political parties, running for political office, serving on local committees, attending public meetings, petitioning the government, and volunteering for public service projects. These are all things you should do as a good citizen to help make our country a better place. Just below the box, let's start with a reading. In addition to the legal obligations of citizenship, citizens have the responsibilities that are not enforced by penalties. All of these are forms of civic participation, which is participating in the government. I want you to underline or highlight responsibilities that are not enforced by penalties. That way you know that it's something you should do, but you will not be penalized for not doing it. If ordinary citizens do not devote some of their time to public affairs, democracy simply cannot work. Passive citizenship cannot ensure the success of our democratic system of government. Our system depends on the willingness of its citizens to perform their responsibilities as well as their obligations. Underline or highlight that sentence. Our system depends on the willingness of its citizens to perform their responsibilities as well as their legal obligations. Put a big star somewhere next to that to make that stick out so you know that is an important statement. If the people don't participate in our government will not be able to be as great as it is. First responsibility of citizenship. Be informed. To influence public policy and to make wise decisions when voting, citizens need to be informed. They should read or listen to reliable sources of information, such as books, newspapers, and news magazines, radios, televisions, and the internet. Vote. Good citizens take care of exercising their right to vote by being informed and by voting in every election. Underline or highlight that sentence. When they cannot be at home on the day of an election, good citizens send in an absentee ballot in advance. Underline or highlight absentee ballot, and then the next sentence. These are special ballots usually sent by a voter in the mail when he or she cannot go in person to the polling place, which is the place where the voting takes place, on election day, which is the date of the election. So you should have highlighted everything from absentee ballot down until after it says election day. You will learn more about elections in the next chapter. Express views. Good citizens actively communicate their views to others. They write letters, speak with friends, and voice their opinions at public meetings. In fact, one of the easiest ways to participate in our democracy is by expressing your views. In a letter to one of your state government representatives or member of Congress. Participate in politics. Good citizens join political parties and may even become candidates for public office themselves. You will learn more about the political parties in the next chapter. In our democracy, any citizen who meets a certain minimum requirements, usually relating to age and residence, can seek an elected government office. Let's now look at the active citizen assignment you have right below that. Put a number 4 next to that, because that is the 4th active citizen assignment you had. You had 3 from video 1. This will be number 4. Please put it on the same sheet of paper that you were using for the first part of this assignment. And let's read over the assignment. Select one local issue or one thing you would like to change in your community. Then write a letter expressing your views. Send your letter to the local newspaper, to your representative in the Florida State Legislature, or to a member of Congress. First, think about the issue you'd like to address. You might want to conduct some research to get details about the problem or situation you'd like to change. Then, think about the changes you'd like to introduce. What evidence do you have that these changes would work? Can you explain why your ideas might help solve the problem? Has your approach been successful elsewhere? Do you have names of any experts who support your ideas? In writing your letter, be sure to introduce who you are, to describe the problem, and explain your solution. To provide evidence to support your ideas, and conclude by showing how your solution will solve the problem. Then, thank your reader. Next, see what the local newspapers might be interested in printing in your letter. Search the internet to find the names of local newspapers or ask your school librarian. Then, search the internet to find the name of your representative in the Florida House of Representatives in the Florida Senate. Also find the name of your member of Congress. Remember that you might have to rewrite your letter, changing it slightly depending on to whom you are sending it. When doing this assignment, I am grading to make sure that you write a nice paragraph, minimum of 1 paragraph, which is at least 5 sentences. That's for the bare minimum. I would like to see an introductory paragraph, a paragraph in the middle that has the information, and then a conclusion. So for a full 100, you would need 3 paragraphs. In your paragraphs, in your letter, you need to address, is it a state problem? So are you sending this to the state? Or is it a Dade City problem? Are you going to send it to the Dade City government? So once you decide which one it is, address the letter to that group, and then begin going over your problems. Refer back to this active citizen sheet for information that you need to get a full grade.